Hey everyone, Django Fett here. So this is the spoilers discussion into Dune Part 2 and Dune as a whole, mainly for Book 1. So I'm not going to spoil anything that will happen for Dune Messiah, but this is just going to be a pure discussion on everything Dune related for Dune Part 2 and the whole entirety of the Book 1. So if you haven't seen my non-spoiler review of that one, go check that out. Link in the description down below. I watched it a second time just recently. I had a better time seeing it a second time than I did seeing it the first time around, I must say. There's a lot of things that I missed that I didn't see the first time around, but I still had a great time with the movie. I still think it's fantastic, but it still has many issues, and I didn't give it that perfect rating, but if you combine Part 1 and Part 2 together, it's probably a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5 instantly. Part 1 is easily a 5 out of 5, as you've seen in my other review. Part 2, a little bit down, just in my personal opinion. I know many people will disagree with me on that, but as a book purist, and no, I don't think they can translate everything into the book into here, but there are major things you cut out from the book to the movie that should have just been in there. So I'm going to start the spoilers discussion now, so if you haven't seen those other reviews, go check that out. And if you don't want to see any spoilers whatsoever, better stop this video. So, I'm going to go into the plot, and I'm also going to go into the Esquire article that actually goes into how Dune Part 2 differs from the book. So, it's titled, Denis Villeneuve's sequel is a faithful-ish adaptation of the second half of the 1965 novel, but in the details, some of the changes are much bigger than grains of sand. It'd be better if I just showed it right here. So, we'll go into some of these, and we'll go into some of the bigger reasons. So, the North and South Fremen split. From the very beginning of the movie, it's made clear that some Fremen are less religious than others, and that a huge mass of Southern fundamentalists will become fanatical followers of Paul once he embraces the mantle of the Messiah. The word fundamentalist does not ever mentioned in the text of Dune, and the idea that Paul will tap into religious fanatics in the South is something basically invented for the movie. However, there is more of a logistical change than a thematic change, both in the movie and in the book. Paul and Jessica are aware that the Bene Gesserit's Missionara Protectora project planted religious prophecies on Arrakis centuries prior, mostly to help out outworlders and elites exactly like Paul and Jessica. What makes the film different is that the way this plays out. The result that Paul has an army of fanatics at his side is the same in both the film and the book, but the idea that Chani views Stilgar as a Southerner, obsessed with religion, is not in the book at all. So, yeah, so that's the thing. They're pretty much right behind Paul no matter what. Not in the very beginning, but, you know, slowly but surely, as they're seeing the signs, they're like, okay, we all believe no matter what. So there's not two factions as it was shown in the movie. And I did like that aspect, but I didn't like how it was executed with one major character, and that's with Chani. So, we'll get into Chani now. There are some major problems with her in this movie that I did not like with her character. So we'll get right into that. So speaking of Zendaya's excellent turn as Chani, and speaking of which, I did like Zendaya as Chani. I think she did a great job for what she had. The writing behind the storytelling for her character, I just didn't like in the second half of the film. I just wanted to make that clear. So this character is by far the most changed from the book counterpart throughout book Dune Part 2. Chani makes it clear that she views the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib as a bad thing and a way for the Fremen to be further enslaved. In the book, Chani stands by Paul's side and supports him in everything, even when he decides to marry Princess Arulin for political convenience. Now, I think that the way they did that in the second half, in the ending, it definitely hits you with that music behind it. Oh my god, it is amazing. So, the only problem is, how are they going to lead off with Dune Messiah? I know it's going to be 12 years later, or I think 10 or 12 years. I don't remember the time off the top of my head. Much time later, after the events of Dune Part 2, but it's just like, how are Chani and Paul going to still be together after all this? Well, are they still going to be having that chemistry? Are they still going to hate each other in Dune Messiah? I don't want to see that. I really don't want to see this antagonistic thing going on in Dune Messiah. I kind of want her to be kind of just willing to follow Paul no matter what in this Dune Messiah, and then slowly seeing that tragedy unfold with Chani and Paul in the book, so she's not aware, so that we are the audience and just like shocked when it happens. I'm not gonna spoil what happens, but it's it's not pretty for both of them. In the film, Chani spends half of the movie falling in love with Paul, and the other half utterly furious with him. One key change eliminates her first pregnancy in Dune Part 2. She never gets pregnant with hers and Paul's first child, Leto II the Elder. In the book, she and Paul have this son, and he's killed during a Sardaukar attack. So here's the thing too, is that Princess Arulan actually talked with the Emperor, and he was ready to say, hey, let's send assassins, but she's like, and this makes sense too, is like, you'll only make them stronger, the religious fervor stronger. And so he agrees with that. So they don't send assassins, and this never happens. So, and I mean, because they don't have a child anyway, so it's not as impactful since that doesn't happen. But in the book, it's actually 2 years late. I think it was, I don't remember. People are saying 2 years. Some other people are saying 3 years. I'm gonna say it's 2 years. He spends time with the Fremen, and he has a child with Chani, and she gets killed, or her child gets killed in the attack. So if Chani actually had the child, that would have been much more impactful for Paul to have a reason to go out and have more revenge, because it seems like the revenge part was just kind of cut out. It didn't seem like he wanted revenge anymore and wanted to just destroy everyone in the process. You don't really see that for me. Like, yes, he's attacking the Harkonnens, triggering the attacks throughout, but you didn't see that that big thing with part 1 where he gets massacred and stuff. It seems like he kind of forgot about that. I mean, he mentioned it once in part 2, but it's just like, I didn't really see that with him. I didn't see like, oh, I want revenge, I want to destroy everything. I didn't see that for me personally. So there are aspects I really liked about Paul and things I just didn't like about him at the same time. So it avoids giving us the first Leto II altogether. And of the 3 filmed versions of Dune, the only one to date that has depicted Paul and Chani's first child and his tragic death is the 2000 Sci-Fi Channel miniseries Frank Herbert's Dune. I really want to see the series now. I really do. I think it's probably even more accurate than this series here, or than the part 1 and part 2. If I have to be honest, I mean, like, just seeing this alone, I know there's some other things, big things too. It's just that I think they probably captured more of that in the miniseries than in the actual movies, which is a shame. Like, you don't want to see that happen. You wanted to see only almost like a reflection of the book into movie form. And I know they're not going to be able to capture everything and things they omit, and that's fine that they omit some things like the orgy, like orgies and stuff like that. That makes sense, okay? That's fine. But don't cut out some major things like this with Chani and her child and her just being pouty all of a sudden. It just, I did not like that. And it's plus, like, her helping Paul having the water of life. Actually, I don't remember that in the book. I don't think that ever happens. He just does it himself. He navigates through the waters of life himself and gets the poison out, and then he's the only male to survive from that. So that's, God, why why did they have to infuse Chani into this and just make her just like this pouty type? I just did not. I'm not a fan of that. Okay, so here it is. 1 year instead of 3. Some people are saying 2 years, and then this one is saying 3 years. I don't know. I can't make sense of it. You guys can tell me in the comments. In the book, more time passes than in the film. Roughly 3 years in total. And so you also see his eyes turning blue. That's because of the spice. So longer exposure to spice, especially, I think mainly just in Dune, will cause you to have the bluer eyes, especially ingesting it. So that's what really causes that. Here, everything that went in part 2 occurs in the same year as part 1, the year 10191.
We know this is the case because Princess Arulin's diary says it's the same year. This fact also speeds up some of Paul's integration into the Fremen and changes just how long Gurney has been out there in the desert working with smugglers. In essence, what took several years to build up in the book happens over the course of a few months in the new movie, which I don't like. Chani jokes about Paul not surviving the summer, which makes it seem like most of this movie actually takes place over that much shorter period of time. And okay, so there's a couple more, yeah, 2 more, and there's another thing over here I want to discuss too. Alia, because Dune Part 2 truncates the timeline of this first book, this leads to an even bigger change in the overall narrative. Alia isn't born in the movie. In the book, Alia is born during the time Paul and Jessica are living in the deep desert with the Fremen. Because Jessica takes the water of life while pregnant, Alia becomes preborn with all the memories of her ancestors present the second she comes out of the womb. But in Dune Part 2, we don't see baby Alia emerge, and instead Jessica talks to her unborn daughter in hushed tones. Only at the end do we hear Alia's voice in Jessica's head when she says, "What is happening, mother?" So, yeah, I mean, at some point she, after she gets the water of life, I think a couple months later, then Alia is born, and then she's practically like 2 or 3, when she encounters the Baron himself, and then she actually ends up killing the Baron, and she's like almost like this crazy freak, and she knows, like, she's like super smart, and she can talk when she's like practically like a baby, like a toddler, and it's crazy. So I guess that it makes sense that it wouldn't translate well, I guess, in that sense, so that's why that didn't happen. But that's kind of a big thing that they just took out from there. I understand it doesn't translate well, but I mean, you could try some other way. Maybe just make her maybe like a toddler or something like that. I don't know. Make it something more believable. And in another change for the book, Paul meets an adult Alia in a vision of the future. Here, Alia is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who warns Paul of the hardships that are yet to come. So I actually found out about this after Dune was released, and I found out that she was playing Alia, and I was like, oh my god, now I just spoiled myself. After just seeing an article that just showed that, and I was just like, what? Oh my god. And then I was like, how is she gonna play Alia? Because she's like practically like a kid, like a baby. It doesn't make any sense. But it's like the future self, so that's fine. This very brief cameo further alters the original novel because it seems to depict a version of Alia well beyond the events of Dune Messiah. That's the thing. Like, Anya Taylor-Joy is like in her 20s or 30s, and it wouldn't make any sense to put her in even Dune Messiah, because she'll practically be like 15, 16, I think. I don't even remember the age. I'm terrible with time. In Dune Messiah. So that wouldn't make any sense. But in Children of Dune, however, I could see that. I could definitely see that. But it's going to be years later for Children of Dune. I'm not sure how the hell they're going to do it, connecting it to Dune Messiah. Or is she even... It just doesn't make any sense if she's going to be in Dune Messiah and then Children of Dune. Because it would be a much older... Like, it would make sense she was in Children of Dune. But Dune Messiah, she'd have to be like 16, 17. You have to make her super young, Anya Taylor-Joy. And, people get older, and so she's not going to look the same after like 4 or 5 years. And then it's going to be like another 5, 6 years for Children of Dune. Who knows when what's going to happen with that. But up until this point, the only actress to play Alia as an adult was Daniela Amavia in the 2003 miniseries Children of Dune. All of this also means that Dune Part 2 is the first adaptation of the first novel that doesn't depict Alia as a precious, all-knowing toddler. Which is interesting. They omit her from being this all-knowing, so she's like wondering, like, hey, what's happening, mother? So in the 1984 adaptation, the child Alia was played by Alicia Witt, and in 2000 by Alara. In the new film, by ending the story before Alia is born, one of the more memorable and outlandish aspects of the original novel has been omitted. Yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 with that one. I'm just not sure. And then Paul kills the Baron. So keeping Alia in the womb for an entire movie also directly impacts the end of the movie in one massive way. Throughout the text of Dune, Princess Arulin's epigraphs refer to her as Saint Alia of the Knife. So that's not going to happen because she doesn't kill the Baron. She is the one who kills the Baron. This is partially because she's a great knife fighter as an adult, but also because as a child, Alia is the one who kills the Baron. On page 753, Alia stabs the Baron and says, "I'm sorry, grandfather. You've met the Atreides Gom Jabbar." The Gom Jabbar, of course, is the poison needle that was held at Paul's neck by Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayan at the start of the first book, and also in Dune Part 1. In Dune Part 2, thanks to the vision of the Water of Life, Paul learns from the future Alia that the Baron is his grandfather. In the book, he's aware of that much earlier, but in the movie, it's Paul who kills his grandfather instead of Alia. When Paul twists the knife, he says, "You die like an animal." This references the test that the Reverend Mother gave him in Part 1, implying that Paul's instincts were human. Yet this brutal version of Paul, at this exact moment, is somewhat new for the film. Overall, Denis Villeneuve preserves the spirit of Frank Herbert's message, because Dune Part 2 makes it painfully clear that Paul's ascendancy to power will result in an even worse state of affairs for the galaxy. And I think Herbert wrote it as a warning against leaders that pretend to know what will happen, who pretend to know the truth, who might be lacking humility. And I think it does show that to an extent. I do think there were some things that I wish were changed in that regard, just to show like how fucked up the future is, and show how much of a false leader and how much he's willing to sacrifice everything in the pursuit of revenge and power. He sacrifices everything, okay? Spoilers. By changing many of the details of the plot of the novel, Villeneuve has paradoxically preserved that message to the point, and yada yada. Okay. Now here's another thing. This is gonna be another problem that I had with the film, and I'm not sure how they're gonna address it with Dune Messiah. I'm guessing it's gonna be addressed in there, but I have no idea. So, Dune Part 2 director says his most painful choice was cutting a character he absolutely loves. You probably recognize this character, the look of this character. He was in Part 1. This is Thufir Hawat, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson in Part 1. Okay, so Thufir plays a small but critical role in the later portion of the 1965 Dune movie. The Harkonnens capture Thufir and put him to work as the Baron's new mentat. But Thufir continues to quietly scheme against the Harkonnens and maneuver Feyd-Rautha against his uncle. In the end, Thufir chooses to die rather than betray Paul. This is what he says. "One of the most painful choices for me, this one, was Thufir Hawat." I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, whatever. "He's a character I absolutely love, but I cited right at the beginning that I was making a Bene Gesserit adaptation. That means that mentats are not as present as they should be, but it's the nature of the adaptation." This is such a stupid quote. Why would you say this? This is so dumb. And it shows with this movie that it's a Bene Gesserit movie. That it's all about the Bene Gesserits, mostly. And it's nothing on the... Mentats are super important, too, because they are very intelligent beings, people who are trained from the highest level to be human machines. To learn quite a bit of technology, of knowledge on the fly, and translate that to their leaders. There's always a mentat to every house leader, and there are huge for every house leader. Very, very important. And the fact to omit mentats altogether is, I did not like that. I hate this quote altogether. I think that's so stupid. And plus, you're gonna have an HBO other Max series on Bene Gesserits too, and it's just like why? The thing is, with even the Bene Gesserit, I like the portrayals, but in the end, the last final sequence with the Bene Gesserit was not satisfying. It was not satisfying with them, especially with Paul facing with the Emperor, who was terribly played by what's his name? I'm blanking on the name. I don't even want to remember his name at this point. He was awful as the Emperor, and his interaction with the Bene Gesserit, Reverend Mother, was not satisfying whatsoever. He just says silence, but that's it. But she wasn't silent. She was just saying abomination. Like, if you're silent, you're supposed to be silent. You're not supposed to say anything. If you have the voice and everything. But there was more of an interaction, more of the Emperor, presence being there, and the Reverend Mother being reduced to just like a little child. even when encountering Alia too. She is just destroyed over all this, and that everything from the prophecy is just turned around against her. And that did not happen. She's just like, whatever. And she even has an interaction with her and Jessica's character. And she's like, oh, we still have a way, or something like that. Some bullshit. And it was just like, I did not like that whatsoever. I was not a fan of it. And this quote is just, God damn, man. Denis Villeneuve understood so much, but in the part 2, he was missing some big things, man. Big fucking things with characters. So another big thing, I'm going to go into the plot, some of the things, is Paul's visions for me. So there was not as many visions that part 1 had for me. Like, part 1 had a decent amount. There wasn't that many, of course. But in part 2, I expected a lot more visions. And especially getting the water of life is super fucking important. And that's where his visions and everything, the different ways he can navigate through the future, different pathways he can choose through there, and to choose one single path to guide him to the end. They didn't show any of that shit whatsoever. And I was super disappointed in that. I get the reference of show, don't tell, but they didn't really show that. But this movie is like the polar opposite of Avatar, the Airbender series, where they do tell, don't show. But there was a lot of things where this movie just show, don't tell, and they did a great job with that in regards to that. But the visions, my God, they toned down the visions quite a lot. There was one that I really liked, was the skull praying to Paul's father's skull, practically worship him. Which is crazy, and they have the skull there, and that's practically from the book. That's what happens, and it's just nuts seeing that. He didn't even try stopping it or anything like that, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just craziness. But he chooses the most horrible way in order to survive, and one way to survive no matter what. There was also one vision that they didn't show in part 2, but it's in the book, that he ends up joining with his grandfather, the Harkonnens, and he was like, I'm afraid to see what goes down there. And I think there's a bunch of others referenced as well, but I thought it was fascinating. I wanted to see these different pathways, like if you chose the right way or the wrong way, what would happen, and even if you chose the right way, it would still lead down the horrible pathway. But they didn't reference the biggest fucking thing, this holy war, which they didn't even see. They say it's the Fremen Jihad. The big thing that was implied, they only referenced it once, like, oh, I'm gonna kill, billions of people are gonna die if I go down to the south. They were only showing like a few people just going like, oh, I'm dying and stuff, and Jessica's there. No, he should be the one there because he chose that fucking path, not Jessica Atreides there or anything like that. He's the one who chose that. He could have chosen not to do any of that, but he chose this path regardless, costing billions of people's lives, and regardless for revenge and power. And that's what made him so powerful in the book, is that he is the hero from beginning, and in the end, he ends up as the fucking villain. He chose a path of destruction, death and destruction that cost so many lives, and not just starving, as they reference in the vision, like people will be starving. No, billions of people will die. 70, I think it was 60 or 70 billion people in the galaxy will die to this Fremen Jihad. Okay, a lot of fucking people. This isn't just, oh, it's just a measly 10,000 or 1 million or in this big war. No, this is 60, 70 billion, okay? This is a ridiculously high number that is going to cause devastation throughout the fucking galaxy. People are not going to survive. The Harkonnens are practically dead. Say what you will, like if it's good or bad, it's still bad that this happened, that it caused so many people to die in that regard. But it shows you to not fully trust into those people's visions or power and stuff like that. And also that even though the great houses are there. They're like, okay, they're not listening to me in that regard that they'll let you be emperor. He's still like, he looks down, but you don't see what goes through his mind. I want to see what goes on in his mind, what the vision that it will be like billions of people dead. Just show like bodies, just on this flat plane. I don't care. Just show that to us. Part 1 did it better in that regard, showing the bodies and destruction much better to that effect than Part 2 did. What Part 2 did was frankly lazy, in my opinion. Very lazy. First implying, oh, people are gonna starve. That's an effect to that. Yeah, sure. But billions of people are gonna fucking die. Show those bodies instead of just showing like this one with like this giant mouth, elongated mouth. See, I could go on and on about this movie because like I love so much about this movie, but I also hate so much about this movie. Well, not so much hate, but I just dislike. And they could have done more. They could have done so much better. I hope they have an extended cut or something. I don't know. But even then, I don't think it could fix it, to be honest. The problems that I have with this movie. And I just don't understand the direction they went with this. Changing so many things from this. And I don't want a one-to-one recreation from the book. Even though the book is 10 out of 10, it's legendary. And I know many people have not read that. But if you're watching the movie on that, I guarantee you most people have not read the book. So why not show everything from the book into movie form? And I know you can't do it in entirety, but you can at least try in that regard. Let's see where it goes. I'm 50-50 on the movie. I think it's still a fantastic movie. It's worth watching. I watched it twice in theaters. Second time I watched it in XD, Cinemark XD. I think it's like it's like IMAX or something like that. It was great to watch it. But even the guy next to me who's read the book, I was just talking to this gentleman, and he, we both had a good time with the movie, but he was like, wait, what? That's it? He just didn't like the direction with Chani and some big things with the movie. And I'm with him on that, man. I am with him. So I think Dune fans are going to be mixed with this movie. Everybody else, I think, is going to enjoy the movie. They're going to have a great time with the movie. So that's my opinion on Dune Part 2. I think Dune Part 1 is still better, in my opinion, but Dune Part 2 is still a damn good movie. It's worth watching in theaters. And if you can, watch this in XD or IMAX. It is absolutely worth it. It is just beautiful. One of the most visual masterpieces, best visual masterpieces I've ever seen on the big screen. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I will be doing some more Dune stuff. I really want to watch the 1984 film again. But more than that, I want to watch the 2000 series and compare it to this. I really do. After seeing this and seeing the many issues, I gotta compare it to this, man. I really do, to see how much it reflects the actual book itself and give you guys my honest opinion. And also I want to do, Children of Dune. I still need to finish reading that. And I'll try to do some more, the other reviews that I've been promising, Star Wars and Akira Kurosawa, and try my best to give you guys those reviews as well. Got with vacation and work and stuff, it's just been really tough, but I'm going to try my best. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think of Dune Part 2 in the comment section below. You can go full spoilers. It does not matter to me whatsoever. Go ham. Let me know what you like, what you did not like in the comment section below. And subscribe to my channel, Django Fett, if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.